Wegamete. Hayi kulungile mfowethu ngiyabonga ngokuzwa lama debates engiwezwayo kule group yakho. Just two things, and ngiyafisa ukuthi ngabe ngiyangena ngicele kakhulu kulezi zinto kodwa sengaba yilo muntu owuye ekhanda lakhe manje. For starters ngiyafisa nje ukuthi ngelilanga ngiyithole ngisemhlanganweni we-ANC onale quality ye discussion and debate. I mean, all the meetings of the ANC and conferences that I've attended, whether is at a branch, regional level, provincial level, national level, I lack this kind of incisiveness in terms of the actual discussion and the effective evaluation of our social circumstance as Africans and South Africans in general. And I think there's a problem in Alondo because what it means is that people who contribute effectively in the outlook of a society abanayo a platform kuma structures e-ANC. Now, ngithathela phela ngithathela because ngiyalalela izinto eziningi khona no comrade obona ukuthi bazazi izinto bafundile labo comrade kunzima la kujulile yabona. Kodwa uyizwa lento in the conferences of the ANC. And the question is why? Why really? And that's what disturbs me, because what it means is that the ANC is being starved of an opportunity for itself to grow and prosper for the benefit of Africans and people in general. And I think that's what we need to confront, right? So that's the first point. Ngiyafisa ngelinye ilanga uma ngenhlanhla ngiyithole ngisemhlanganweni onjalo. Now, the reason why ngisho lonto is because bona kusisa conference documents. Uyazi mawukuze kuyiwe enkofeni cishe ube sengiqala ukwazi ngekhanda ukuthi azobhalwa athiweni lawo ma documents. Ngoba there is a lot of regurgitation of a similar material that has been there for decades. It's as if singabantu abayesontweni umsebenzi wethu ukotusa ukuthi iBhayibheli lingcwele kangakanani or limnandi kangakanani. And yet we're supposed to be and are expected to be social scientists in the true sense of the word. Now, and that's what worries me. Any document, yes, I will say as I lento noma uyifunde kangakanani iyo lento efanayo for the past 10 years, 20 years and so forth. It's more or less the same thing. It's just tweaking here and there and so forth. There's a problem with that approach because that approach, in my view, is very disempowering. Therefore, this incisiveness that I'm hearing from comrades in your group, for me, is a necessary one. So ngiyafisa ngelinye ilanga ngiyithole ngisemhlanganweni onjalo. The second point I want to deal with is indaba democracy as a system. Now, the fact of the matter remains, right throughout the African continent, one of the fundamental weaknesses is that all we have sought to do is to occupy a political office, eyayisuke iqhwakelwe ama-colonizers wethu abelungu ebese si-inherit ama-systems wabo and hope that they're going to work for us, for our own circumstance. Siyakwenqena or siyakusaba uku-investa a lot of energy and research work in exploring ukuthi imaphi ama-systems or iyiphi system desirable for us, for our own circumstance. Now, for me, the question of system structure shall always equal the output. So it's important. The system that you're using and the structure that you're using must always inform your deliverables, in a sense. So I do feel sincerely that siyawugeja umgodi ngoba si-inherita that which necessarily is not wholly designed for us. For an example, I think Ungit from says people must have a voice, which is true. People must have a voice. Democratic system is about the people's voice and so forth. But people must have a voice not only at the point of a polling station. There must be a continuous system that ensures the voice of the people. Now, I once asked you this question. Ngati sincerely, who can stand here and say people are governing in South Africa? Because that's not true. It's something else that governs the South Africa, but not people. People do not have a final say. Ngaze ngeze example ngathi kuwe. Jean-Jacques Rousseau resolved this question a long time ago, more than 3,000 years ago, of the people governing and them having a final say. So the final say in the South African system is in our courts. You have 11 lawyers that decide the fate of the country. Now, how can that be democratic? How can that be said to be people governing? We have laws that have been written by judges in this country and not by the people and not by the representatives of people. And yet, whenever we go to elections, no judge, no lawyer gets elected. By the way, judges are merely nothing else except lawyers. So there's no lawyer that gets elected to represent the people's interests. So how come they are becoming final arbiters? I mean, one day if we were to conduct just some scanning, a survey, topical research, if we want, of all the laws that we have made in this country, you'll find that there are laws or even certain clauses or amendments of our acts that have been written by judges. Then you ask yourself, if people are governing, how come you have such a circumstance? So we do need to revisit this question. The sooner the better, really, because sizoibona this thing. In Yugoslavia, one of the interesting things that I also observed there was you had a civil war which, in a sense, was avoidable, completely avoidable. And people had lived there, Macedonians, Slovaks, and Croats, and whomever else. They had lived there for years side by side and so forth. But at some point, the Yugoslavia Communist League, I think Socialist League, sorry, that's what it was called. There was a contestation between a comrade who was a Croat and a comrade who was a Serbian. And all of a sudden, the contestation for a position chairpersonship of the party translated into resuscitating a Serbian-Croat war which had occurred 600 years ago, and it became an issue. But also the center of such contestation, you also had the role of the courts. Now, so we all know, September 1989, Yugoslavia began its fall. In other words, you then had a civil war. Those people who were living piece by piece, side by side, as neighbors and so forth, all of a sudden they were enemies. A Croat had to kill a Serbian had to kill a Croat. So the rest is history up until the International Criminal Court, convicted Slobodan Milosevic and stuff like that. So I'm saying if we're not careful, we might easily end up with such circumstances because of what our courts are currently doing. And we're not, I think we're scared to even begin to deal with the question of the role that they have begun to play. So, in a sense, all I'm saying, I think you are making a necessary sort of point. We're not going to make the mode. We need to review. Can let democracy to yini and isifuna ini ngayo kahle. Yabona. Now, the rest, there's a song by Phil Collins. These things that are left unsaid. I think many of us in the ANC have reached that point. When we have to deal with the actual political life and outlook and social outlook of the ANC, the best thing that you find comrades doing, I think myself included, I'm also to blame for that, is to just simply keep quiet. Because the circumstance is such that instead of comrades being able to interact and evaluate the actual issues that a comrade would be raising, let's say, for instance, like the issues that comrade Nkosinathi is raising, all the points that it might also be that I disagree with him. Now, but you find that instead of disagreeing with the actual content of the issues, the whole thing that I'm quick at doing is, by the way, who is he? Umuntu gabani. And so abakhona into talk abantu bathize bakabani and stuff like that. Engazi ukuthi nakho lokho into eyasuke lapho iphumaphi lonto le. Uyabona? So lonto iya discourage and comrades ngoba iyenza ukuthi ugcina ubona ukuthi hey kungcono ngenze lento abathi abelungu shut up vele ngithule nje ngibukeleke ngoba manje izothi yakhuluma sokuthi people are very quick in terms of labeling comrades, in terms of the fact that they hold particular views and so on. So I agree with you that the biggest weakness that we now have, whether it's driven by fear or any other form of subjectivity, is the mere fact that we're not even underutilizing skills that exist amongst some of us as part of the human resource in the ANC. We're just simply not utilizing certain people because sibaleblisha ngokuthi bayizinto zakobani noma bayini kanjanjani and so on. And yet, a social circumstance is tantamount to a battlefield, approaching a battlefield for an example. You need everybody there. You need all forms of contributions. You need, various sort of thought processes. And some of the thought processes are informed by experiences and so forth. And you find that those experiences are no longer finding their way through into the current life of the ANC. And therefore, what does that do? It weakens the ANC. What does that do? It doesn't grow comrades and so on. Because it's starved to all of us of the necessary information and experience. So I am quite happy with these debates, except that these debates, they are on the periphery. They're outside the structures. Now, I'm not going to go wrong, look. I'm just simply saying something must be done to try and influence the quality of discussion and debate inside the necessary constitutional structures of the ANC. Even if, and what I'm saying, it doesn't mean what I'm suggesting, good, therefore comrades, all these comrades that are contributing here should be members of either an REC or PEC or whatever. No, I'm not even suggesting that. I'm just simply saying these comrades can be called upon to prepare inputs, and these inputs can be part of discussions at the level of constitutional structures. So when I'm again, normally I don't comment, and in fact, I've become, recently educated on talk a voice note nje bengingazi nokuthi iyalokhu who's in fact ngiqaleni izolo kuthi kanti kwenziwa kanje lento makuthiwa voice note, and yet ngiyakwazi ukuyilalela. So kodwa ngicongratulate Mpe. All right, thank you very much.